Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next hour, Arab and Muslim leaders gather in Riyadh for the Arab Islamic Summit. Saudi Crown Prince demands immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba keeps his job in a parliamentary vote despite having recently led the ruling coalition to its worst general election result in 15 years. Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth concedes defeat in parliamentary elections. India's Prime Minister congratulates Dr. Naveen Ram Ghulam on his historic win, invites him to visit India. And the UN's annual COP29 climate talks open in Azerbaijan's Baku with calls for global cooperation and fresh disaster warnings, but proceedings quickly get stuck in a tussle over the agenda. First up, the conflict in Gaza has crossed the over 400 days mark, and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Monday called for immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. Addressing a joint Arab League and Organization of Islamic Cooperation summit in Riyadh, Prince Mohammed also called on Israel not to attack Iran. Just hours earlier, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said there was progress in talks about a ceasefire in Lebanon. However, Hezbollah said that it has not received any official ceasefire proposal as yet.
Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Monday called for immediate ceasefires in Gaza and Lebanon, opening a joint Arab League and Organization of Islamic Cooperation summit. The Crown Prince said that Israel must respect Iran's sovereignty, not attack its territory.
We call on the international community to uphold its responsibility to maintain international peace and security by immediately ending the Israeli aggression against our brothers in Palestine and Lebanon, and to ensure that Israel respects the sovereignty of the brotherly Islamic Republic of Iran and refrains from attacking its territories.
On the other hand, diplomatic efforts are also underway to end the conflict. On Monday, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said that there has been certain progress on a ceasefire in Lebanon.
I think there is certain progress working on the issue. We are working with the Americans on the issue. There is progress.
Israeli Foreign Minister's remarks triggered a sharp reaction from Lebanon-based group Hezbollah, which said it has not received any proposals on a truce for Lebanon. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghei said that US President-elect Donald Trump must end the war in Gaza.
Future American statesmen should learn from this situation and stick to the promises they made during the election campaign. The Iran, the Muslim world, and every country in the world are keeping a close eye on the behavior of American government, whether it is the previous administration or the next one.
While in Gaza, trucks carrying humanitarian aid were allowed through the Erez crossing into northern Gaza on the morning of Monday. Earlier on Sunday, the General Chief of Staff of Saudi Arabia's armed forces, Fayed al-Ruwaili, visited Tehran to meet with his Iranian counterpart and discuss defense ties. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
Now, as the Russia-Ukraine conflict enters its 990th day, Russian air attacks killed at least 5 people overnight, injured 19 in Ukraine's Mykolaiv. According to Ukrainian Air Force, the Mykolaiv and Zaporizhzhia regions and most of the eastern half of Ukraine have been under air raid alerts. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer reaffirmed their support for Kyiv during a meet in Paris. DD India's Rahul Padhyay brings us more.
French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer reaffirmed their support for Kiev during talks in Paris. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who visited Paris for Armistice Day commemorations, met Macron at Élysée Palace. While French Foreign Minister said that Ukraine's allies must not prejudge how Donald Trump will handle the war there. Russian President Vladimir Putin met on Monday with head of Russia's North Ossetia-Alania Republic, Sergei Manilo, in Moscow. The Kremlin on Monday denied reports that US President-elect Donald Trump had spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin in recent days and said Putin had no concrete plans yet to speak to Trump. Amid ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Russia's defense minister inspected Russian forces fighting in Ukraine. Russian air attacks killed at least 5 people overnight, injured 19 more, including 5 children, and set on fire to several buildings in southern Ukraine's Mykolaiv.
We were sleeping. It happened during the night at 1:30 am. There was a strike. What else can I say? Doors were blown out. You can see it for yourself. A door fell on a bed over there. My wife was injured. She has concussion and is at the hospital now.
According to Ukrainian Air Force, the Mykolaiv and Zaporizhia regions and most of the eastern half of Ukraine have been under air raid alerts. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in the last 48 hours, Russia fired 145 drones at Ukraine, more than any previous single nighttime attack during the conflict. The Ukrainian Air Force said later on Monday it shot down 2 missiles and 39 out of 74 drones launched by Russia overnight. The Air Force said 30 more drones were lost in Ukrainian airspace and 3 more left toward Belarus and territories temporarily occupied by Russia. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar and Russia's first Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov addressed the India-Russia Business Forum in Mumbai on Monday. Denis Manturov is on a 2-day visit to India from the 11th to the 12th of this month as part of a working trip aimed at strengthening bilateral ties. During the event, the External Affairs Minister said that a partnership between an India that has an 8% growth rate market as well as a major technology leader will serve both of them and the world well.
Russia has consciously focused more deeply on Asia since 2022. This has created many more avenues of cooperation. That we have a long history of strong convergence and deep friendship allows us to make the best of both factors. That the two economies are so complementary is also a key consideration. A partnership between an India that has an 8% growth rate for multiple decades ahead and a Russia that is a key natural resources provider as well as a major technology leader will serve both of them and the world well.
The Kremlin on Monday denied reports that US President-elect Donald Trump had spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin in recent days and said that Putin had no concrete plans yet to speak to Donald Trump. The Washington Post first reported that the call had taken place, citing unidentified sources, and said that Trump had told Putin that he should not escalate the Ukraine war. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters that, and I quote, "This is completely untrue. This is pure fiction. It's just false information. There was no conversation," end quote. And Donald Trump announced late on Sunday that he is bringing back hardline immigration official Tom Homan to oversee the country's borders in the incoming administration. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Donald Trump said former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement Tom Homan will be in charge of the country's borders in his new administration. He added that in addition to overseeing the southern and northern borders and maritime and aviation security, Homan will be in charge of all deportation of illegal migrants back to their country of origin. Also, Trump has named Republican Representative Elise Stefanik as his pick for UN ambassador. The New York Congresswoman, the 4th-ranking House Republican, has been a strong ally of the president-elect and a major fundraiser for the GOP. A former Republican presidential candidate and biotech executive Vivek Ramaswamy has announced on Sunday that Donald Trump plans to make mass deportations a top priority when he returns to the White House. Trump, who campaigned on a strict immigration stance, has vowed to initiate a sweeping crackdown, aiming to set record deportation numbers. His running mate, J.D. Vance, estimated the operation could see up to 1 million people being deported annually.
Not a cent of government spending should go to subsidize this, not to sanctuary cities, not to federal aid to people who are in this country illegally. And we're going to see a large number, by the millions, of self-deportations as well. And so these are pragmatic places to start that would give us, yes, the largest mass deportation in American history.
Donald Trump will also become the first president of the U.S. to take office while several criminal cases against him are pending in various courts of the country. So does his ascent to the highest office in the U.S. relieve him of his legal troubles, or will the dozens of criminal and civil charges against him stand? DD India's Amritpal Singh explores.
One question that's hotly being debated here, both in political circles and the media, is what happens to the legal cases against Donald Trump. Now that he's won the election, will it mean that criminal cases against him would disappear? Trump has been battling 4 simultaneous prosecutions, 2 related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election result in Georgia, 1 on his mishandling of secret documents, and 1 on his hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. If media reports are to be believed, federal officials are already exploring options on how to wind down the federal cases under the assumption that sitting US presidents cannot be prosecuted or jailed while in office. This assumption flows from a long-standing US Department of Justice policy, which has been reaffirmed by US Supreme Court rulings that maintain that sitting presidents cannot be tried or jailed while in office. Legal experts, however, say much would still depend on the judge.
Generally, there is no immunity for civil cases where the acts, especially when the acts are outside of the official duties of the president. Here in the civil case against Donald Trump, those definitely are acts that are related to his personal business affairs. So I don't see any immunity being given in those circumstances. Now, the federal and state criminal cases, that's more of a gray area and will be left to the interpretation or ruling of the individual courts that are hearing those cases.
Who Trump appoints as his Attorney General is being keenly watched here in the US because his AG could be instrumental in stalling the cases, if not dropping them altogether. While the Trump-appointed Attorney General could drop the federal cases against him, but the cases in New York and Georgia will have to wait until the end of his term. With cameraman Sanjay Jaina, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Florida.
And still to come on DD India News are: Sri Lanka's poll campaign winds up ahead of key vote. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says he is willing to call a vote of confidence in the German parliament before Christmas. And 4,000 medical workers join a strike in Croatia to force the government to reconsider their demands for higher pay.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Japanese lawmakers have re-elected Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba as leader despite his coalition's recent loss of a parliamentary majority in the lower house. In Monday's vote, PM Shigeru secured 221 votes in the 465-seat lower house to beat top opposition leader Yoshihiko in the first runoff in 30 years. Though his Liberal Democratic Party and its coalition partner, Komito, won the largest block of seats, they fell short of a majority held since 2012. Now Ishiba will need support from smaller opposition parties to advance his policy agenda. Now, less than a week after the US re-elected Donald Trump to the White House and the coalition government in Berlin fell apart, Germany is looking for direction on how to find its place in the world. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said on Sunday that he would be willing to call a vote of confidence in Parliament before Christmas, a move that would pave the way for snap elections. Scholz, whose coalition collapsed last Wednesday, had suggested holding a vote of confidence in his government over his government on the 15th of January with a snap election in March, but the Conservative opposition led by Friedrich Merz wants an election in January. A confidence vote is a necessary precursor to a general election. Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth on Monday conceded defeat in the Indian Ocean Islands' hotly disputed legislative election. Jugnauth said his Le PEP alliance, led by his militant socialist movement, was heading towards a big defeat in Sunday's poll, adding that people have chosen another team to lead the country. Opposition leader Naveen Ram Ghulam looked set to take over the post of Prime Minister for the third time at the head of his Alliance of Change coalition. Only last month, Jugnauth was celebrating a historic deal with Britain to regain sovereignty over the Chagos Islands following a long-running dispute. Turnout in Sunday's vote was strong at about 80%, according to provisional estimates by the Election Commission. Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a social media post has said, and I quote, "Had a warm conversation with my friend Dr. Naveen Ram Ghulam congratulating him on his historic electoral victory. I wish him great success in leading Mauritius and extended an invitation to visit India. Look forward to working closely together to strengthen our special and unique partnership." Sri Lanka's political campaigning drew to a close on Monday ahead of parliamentary polls that have turned into a referendum on ambitious plans to tackle corruption in the bankrupt nation. The snap legislative election was called by new President Anura Kumara Dissanayake after he won September polls on a promise to combat graft and recover the country's stolen assets. Dissanayake has been an MP for nearly 25 years and was briefly an agriculture minister, but he distanced himself from traditional politicians accused of leading the country to its worst meltdown in 2022. The COP29 climate summit has opened in Baku, Azerbaijan, amid urgent warnings about accelerating climate crisis and pressing calls for global cooperation. But a clash over the agenda immediately stalled proceedings, underscoring the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, U.S. climate envoy John Podesta has assured the global community of America's ongoing commitment to climate action despite political shifts at home. Here's more on the first day of COP29.
COP29 began on Monday with a call for unity as the world faces a growing climate crisis. But proceedings quickly hit a standstill as countries clashed over the summit's agenda. Developing nations dealing with escalating climate-related disasters are pushing for wealthier countries to commit more financial support to help them adapt and mitigate risks.
We must agree a new global climate finance goal. If at least 2/3 of the world's nations cannot afford to cut emissions quickly, then every nation pays a brutal price. If nations can't build resilience into supply chains, the entire global economy will be brought to its knees. No country is immune.
The World Meteorological Organization has underscored the crisis, issuing a red alert on climate in its State of the Climate 2024 update. The WMO reports that 2024 is on track to be the warmest year on record, with an unprecedented streak of monthly global mean temperatures well above historical averages.
In terms of where we are in the global climate for 2024, we are worried because all the indicators have gone worse than before. So particularly the temperature now is 1.54 above the pre-industrial levels, of course with a level of uncertainty, but still warming. We also found that glaciers are melting faster, sea level rise is increasing faster, the ocean is warming at the speed, I would say precipitation excesses and deficits are increasing. So everything is showing the same trend.
US climate envoy John Podesta affirmed the United States will continue fighting climate change despite the anticipated policy shifts under the new administration.
While the United States federal government under Donald Trump may put climate action on the back burner, the work to contain climate change is going to continue in the United States with commitment and passion and belief.
COP29 summit in Azerbaijan will run till 22nd of November 2024. With climate finance and adaptation support at the forefront, COP29 could play a transformative role in the global response to climate change. Amish Mahajan's report for DD India.
And there's another key multilateral gathering happening around the same time. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be focusing on multiple issues ranging from enhancing global growth to sustainable development at the 2024 G20 summit, which is taking place in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro on the 18th and 19th of this month. Speaking exclusively to me, India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant said India will also play a constructive role in building consensus among all member nations on contentious matters like the Ukraine and West Asian conflicts. Take a look. The 2024 G20 summit is set to be held in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro on the 18th and 19th of this month, and India is a founding member of a grouping of the world's most impressively financially powerful countries. And leading India will of course be Prime Minister Modi, and along with him will be G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant. He's with us right now. Thank you for speaking to DD India. Could you tell us, in terms of the kind of things that Brazil is taking forward, it's got its agenda set on eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development and reform of global institutions. Is that what Prime Minister Modi will also have on his plate, or will there be something more that he would like the G20 to move forward on?
Oh, the Prime Minister will focus on a range of issues concerning the Global South, and the challenges relate to driving growth, balanced, sustainable, inclusive growth. And the challenge is that the global growth is slowest at the turn of the century. The developed countries are growing at 1.8%, the global growth is about 3.3%, but emerging markets are growing at 4.4%, and 2/3 of the growth in the coming 3-4 decades will come from emerging markets. So growth is important to achieve the SDG goals. And SDG goals are important because we need to have an impact on the citizens of the world.
And when the G20 meeting was held in September in India, when India was the host, one of the biggest challenges was the conflict in Ukraine. Now, a year down the line, slightly more, the conflict in West Asia has been added to it. So these are tremendous challenges. How will the G20 tackle it? The last time consensus was built for the Delhi Declaration on the first day itself. Is it going to be more challenging, less challenging this time?
I think this will be a complex issue. There will be many more challenges. We struggled with it. We did about 300 hours of negotiation on one para of Russia-Ukraine. We failed 16 times but arrived at a consensus on the Russia-Ukraine war, where even the United Nations has not been able to arrive at a consensus so far. So there will be challenges because post our summit, we've had the Israel-Middle East Gaza crisis, and that's a huge humanitarian crisis. And some of the countries have a very strong view on this, so they'll all express it. How it will play out in the coming days will have to be seen. But India will always play a positive and constructive role.
You mentioned the Global South, and one of the significant things that happened when India was hosting G20 was the inclusion of the African Union, 55 countries, as a full-fledged member. How do you think this time around that will make a difference to the kind of deliberations and decisions that might take place in the summit this time around?
India has been very instrumental. Prime Minister Modi has been very instrumental in making G20 an inclusive society, and the voice of the African Union will have to be heard very strongly at the Brazil summit also. And therefore, I think India has played a key and a critical role, and African Union will play a very major role in Brazil.
The European Union leaders met just a few days ago, and they were sort of recalibrating because you have a big change that's taking place in the United States. A Trump presidency will begin in January. Will that sort of recalibration be there for the G20 as well, because of for the kind of agenda Donald Trump has, the MAGA agenda, his views on environment very different from some of the other leaders in the G20?
The challenge will be that America continues to play a very key and a critical role because it's a society which accounts for about 26% of the global GDP. It accounts for about 44% of the market capitalization. With just 4% of the population. And therefore, US voice will be heard, but also the voice of other European leaders is important, and so will be the voice of Russia and China.
Thank you, Mr. Kant, for joining us and talking about what lies ahead for the G20. And clearly, it is to build consensus on critical global issues. With camera person Vinay Tiwari, Gautam Roy, DD India. Now, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer joined French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris on Monday to mark the 106th anniversary of Armistice Day. The day commemorates the end of the First World War, which claimed around 10 million lives, many of them on French soil. In a solemn ceremony at the Arc de Triomphe, the leaders laid flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldier, signed the Golden Book, and met with veterans. Starmer's participation makes him the first British leader to attend the Armistice Day event in France since Winston Churchill's historic visit 80 years ago. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world as well. Nearly 4,000 medical workers joined a strike launched on Monday in hospitals across Croatia, threatening to provide only basic emergency services to patients until the government reconsiders their demand for higher salaries. Thousands of beer-drinking German revelers kicked off the carnival season in the stronghold of Cologne on Monday at precisely 10:11 GMT on the 11th day of the 11th month. A Chinese cyclist has completed an impressive 12-year journey of traveling on two wheels through 62 countries across 5 continents, fulfilling his childhood dream. Falconers showcased their skills with birds of prey in a 2-day falconry contest held in Jardina, a town east of Libya's southwestern city of Benghazi. At the Libya Heritage Carnival, all participants were Libyan, with falcon enthusiasts from Gulf countries attending in support. And still to come on DD India News Hour. We'll be speaking with our expert guest on the growing unrest and violence in Pakistan's Balochistan against the oppression by Pakistan's forces. And cryptocurrency Bitcoin soars to a record high above $82,000 following Donald Trump's win in the US presidential polls.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Arab and Muslim leaders gather in Riyadh for the Arab Islamic Summit. Saudi Crown Prince demands immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth concedes defeat in parliamentary elections. India's Prime Minister congratulates Dr. Naveen Ramgoolam on his historic win, invites him to visit India. And the UN's annual COP29 climate talks open in Azerbaijan's Baku with calls for global cooperation and fresh disaster warnings, but proceedings quickly get stuck in a tussle over the agenda. Well, Saturday's suicide bombing at the Quetta railway station in Pakistan's Balochistan is being chalked up as the deadliest attack against the Pakistani armed forces in the restive province. Such attacks have been mounting in the region and they're being linked with thousands of cases of oppression and forced disappearances which have plagued the Baloch people for over 2 decades at the hands of the Pakistani forces.
Outrage mounts amongst people in Pakistan's Balochistan over human rights violations, forced disappearance of thousands and rampant corruption. The Baloch feel projects like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC are symptomatic of this ganged-up loot. Baloch separatists have been targeting Pakistan's forces and Chinese project workers to thwart their designs. Saturday's suicide bomb blast at Quetta railway station is the biggest attack against Pakistani forces in Balochistan so far. The Baloch Liberation Army's Majid Brigade has claimed responsibility for the attack. Bomber targeted a group of Pakistani Army non-commissioned officers. NCOs had gathered on railway platform to board Zafar Express. JCOs had completed their training at the School of Infantry and Tactics. At least 19 Pakistani Army JCOs were killed in the attack. 40 other JCOs were also injured, most were left in a serious condition. The attack has left the Pakistani Army and its civilian government in a tizzy. Sunday night also saw another attack take place at a Pakistani Army facility in Balochistan's Kech province, which also caused substantial devastation. But the Baloch people seem to have little way out of the clutches of the Pakistani Army's operation. The kin of those forcibly disappeared have been holding protests day in and out to find out what happened to them, but to no avail. The Voice for the Missing Baloch Persons organization has been demonstrating outside the Quetta Press Club for over the last 5,500 days. Yet the VMBP has not got any answers. The VMBP says since 2004 till now over 7,000 people have been forcibly disappeared by the Pakistani army. What's worse is that while there's no justice for the Baloch people facing oppression on a daily basis, but those who raise their voice against injustice like activist Mehrang Baloch also keep facing harassment, false charges and even torture. Gautam Roy's report for DD India.
So let's now talk about what is happening in Balochistan. We have with us TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, joining us. Good evening to you, Ambassador Raghavan. What do you make of the situation there? Because we see that these terror incidents, you can call them terror or that of resistance and separatism as well, because it is happening in a province that's been long oppressed and denied of several privileges, even basic human rights for its citizens for quite some time by the Pakistani military, even the civilian regime.
Well, your report pointed out that the latest attack in the railway station in Quetta is only part of a long series of major counter-insurgency related incidents which have been taking place in Balochistan. The fact is that the insurgency in Balochistan has been there for a number of years, and the government of Pakistan or the Pakistani state or the Pakistani military has not been able to come up with a sustainable response on how to deal with this situation. Common sense tells you that a long-running insurgency requires a political solution. The Pakistani state, unfortunately, has not been able to embark on a political approach and is instead relying principally on a securitized approach, and that also your report had mentioned in terms of increasing human rights violation, large number of disappeared persons, and other related issues. So the security response, in fact, feeds the insurgency and makes it get even more intense, as we are seeing with the upstick in terrorist-related major incidents. The fact is that Balochistan has a number of long-standing grievances. In particular, that although it is a resource-rich state, it has a kind of a colonial relationship with the rest of Pakistan, since the advantage of the exploitation of those resources flows back not into the state but goes to the rest of Pakistan. That was the example with the gas fields discovered over there some 30 or 40 years ago. No real advantage flowed to the people of Balochistan because of that natural resource. So there is a growing sense of alienation and antagonism amongst many Baloch people today, and the symptoms of that are this long-running insurgency.
And why these forced disappearances? Because one can, if one wants to oppress people or put down some sort of an insurgency or a separatist movement, there are ways to do it militarily as well without forcefully disappearing thousands and thousands of people, a lot of young men really, but women as well. And this has been happening again for at least 2 decades now, and over 7,000 forced disappearances, and of course the disgruntlement only spreads further among the people who have been deprived of their kith and kin in this manner, and they've been seeking justice and answers, and nobody is responding to them.
Well, as I said, a heavy-handed securitized approach only feeds into people's alienation and sense of antipathy and antagonism, and that is what is happening. The issue of forced disappearances is a very serious issue. It has been raised persistently by many human rights groups in Quetta, in Balochistan, but also in the rest of Pakistan. But again, there's been no serious and sustained political effort to address this issue, and that in turn further deepens the sense of antagonism and alienation which exists today.
Why do you think there is a complete lack of looking towards a political engagement or initiating a political process? There just seems to be no interest in that. Doesn't the Pakistan ruling establishment realize that this will not, and it has not through these decades, solved this problem?
There's a very simple answer to that. When you have the military running the state for a long period of time, a securitized approach becomes almost the knee-jerk or the Pavlovian response to any difficult situation which is being faced. The second factor is that Pakistan has a fundamental problem in addressing the issues which are raised by terrorist groups. Many of these groups were given a wide latitude in Pakistan and were used as a means of furthering their foreign policy objectives, particularly with Afghanistan and also to a very great extent with India. Now these groups have turned inwards, and the Pakistani government or the Pakistani states lacks a central narrative and a central platform to be able to mobilize people against these extremist and terrorist groups. That is the fundamental problem which Pakistan confronts today when it deals with its domestic insurgents, whether in Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in fact anywhere else.
And there's political unrest in general in Pakistan, apart from economic morass really, where Pakistan has been extending a begging bowl to whoever might put some arms in it, be it the Chinese, be it the Gulf nations or the International Monetary Fund.
And you're quite right. The economic downturn and the grave economic crisis, in fact, underwrites these security and political issues which have come up, because with very high inflation, with numerous supply side bottlenecks, and with no real tangible plan which could suggest that there may be some light at the end of the tunnel. People have no option but to resort to the kind of insurgent actions as we are seeing.
It seems that Pakistan is telling the Baloch people that, look, I'm in a hole and I'll drag you into it as well and make it all the more bigger. Is there any hope for, well, first the Baloch people and then even for Pakistan, the Pakistani people? I mean, there are neighbors. So one cannot sort of expect that things will deteriorate to the extent that Pakistan will never recover and will break up or something even more disastrous could happen. It's a nuclear power.
Well, you're quite right. I think as an immediate neighbor, we require a certain minimum level of stability in Pakistan. Unfortunately, the situation today does not look optimistic at all, because rather than addressing the central issues which are confronting the country, the government is in fact totally obsessed with the domestic factional politics which engulfs it. A principal opposition leader in the form of Imran Khan is in jail. There is a huge amount of political polarization. There are growing rifts between sections of the judiciary and the government, between sections of the judiciary and the military. These internal decisions.
Do you sorry to interrupt, but do you see a situation where the people they're already agitating against the government, but they still don't see the armed forces as the enemy? Do you think there will be a situation where the people might turn against the armed forces itself?
Well, there have been serious civil-military issues even in the recent past. And we know what happened some time ago when former Prime Minister Imran Khan was arrested and a number of principal military institutions were attacked by civilian mobs. But the point is that this kind of sporadic violence will not change the situation. It will add to the intensity of the confrontations which Pakistan faces. But I don't think there is any serious chance of a radical change in the situation or of some kind of major implosion in Pakistan. What is worrying is the absence of any state bandwidth in showing some capacity to devise a sustainable solution to these numerous political, economic and security related issues which Pakistan is facing.
Right, bandwidth or inclination, I don't know what is lacking, but clearly something needs to be found to come up with solutions to Pakistan's increasing problems in every region, in almost every sphere. Thank you for joining us to talk about it, Ambassador T.C.A. Raghavan.
Thank you.
Now, the first Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, Denis Manturov, called on Prime Minister Modi. Today, both the leaders exchanged views on enhancing cooperation in various areas, including trade and economic ties, energy, connectivity, among others. Prime Minister Modi welcomed the sustained and joint efforts being made by the teams in both sides for the implementation of the decisions taken during his recent visits and meetings with President Putin to further strengthen India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. The PM extended his warm greetings to President Putin and said that he looked forward to continuing exchanges with him. Now, cryptocurrency Bitcoin has soared to a record high above $82,000 on Monday, driven by expectations of a cryptocurrency boom in a favorable regulatory environment following Donald Trump's election as US President. The world's largest cryptocurrency has now more than doubled from its year's low of $38,505 and was last trading at $82,236 US. And now let's turn towards home and get to some more stories that have made the news here in India. Now, India's Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Nirmala Sitharaman, held a meeting with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, delegation, which includes 11 officials from the Board of Directors, among others, during the visit to India for the board group visiting in New Delhi on Monday. India's net direct tax collection grew 15.4% year-on-year to $143 billion during the period 1st of April to the 10th of November. Direct taxes, which include corporate and personal tax, grew over 21% on a gross basis during the period. The government said it had issued tax refunds to the amount of 2.9 trillion rupees. India's Minister of Coal and Mines G. Kishan Reddy on Monday highlighted the significance of Kendriya Vidyalayas as powerful mini-Indias, emphasizing their role in fostering national unity and cultural heritage. Speaking at the Rashtriya Ekta Parv program held at Tirumalagiri Kendriya Vidyalaya in Sikandrabad, the minister praised the schools for embodying Prime Minister Modi's vision of showcasing India's rich diversity and creative talent. Air Marshal Ashutosh Dikshit, AOCNC Central Air Command, inaugurated the Indian Air Force C-295 full-motion simulator facility on Monday at Air Force Station, Agra. The simulator enables the pilots to train in a near-realistic environment by simulating various missions like tactical shift, para-dropping, paratrooping, medical evacuation and disaster relief. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The curtain raiser at the press conference of IFFI 2024 held ahead of the holding of India's prestigious film festival in Goa. The English Premier League title race narrows to Liverpool and Man City.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India's Information and Broadcasting Ministry, in collaboration with the National Film Development Corporation and the Entertainment Society of Goa, is set to host the 55th International Film Festival of India in Goa from the 20th through the 28th of this month. Storytellers and cinema enthusiasts alike have a reason to rejoice as the 55th edition of IFFI is all set to start with a vibrant lineup and diverse programming, thereby promising an unforgettable celebration of golden global cinema. The curtain raiser press conference of 55th IFFI was held today, where India's Minister of State for I&B, Dr. L. Murugan, highlighted the festival's prestigious role on the global stage.
Internationally, you compare, our festival is one of the largest festival in the international level. Our IFFI, you can compare with Cannes or some other festival. So you find the differences, the festival, how it is glorious festival is taking place. More than 2,000 international films are entered here. So that is the response we are getting from the international audience and international delegates.
Renowned Indian film director Shekhar Kapoor, who took charge as the festival director, emphasized the pivotal role of storytelling in cinema, calling it the very heart of the cinematic experience.
How can I not support the Indian film industry, the Indian Film Festival? How can I not support anything to do with Indian film? Because I am, because Indian film is, because I have, my whole career depends on that. But as you rightly said, sir, it's our audiences. When the audiences applaud, we are. If the audiences don't applaud, we don't exist. The first thing that came to me is that we have to celebrate. We are. Our audiences are. They took anything from us. Prasun and I have many conversations. This film is good, yeah. This film is bad. What are we doing? But they all went. And so the audiences created us. So we have to celebrate the audiences, and that's one of the things that we have to do.
The convocation ceremony of India's premier fashion technology institute, the National Institute of Fashion Technology, or popularly known as NIFT, was held at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi, with India's Textiles Minister Giriraj Singh attending the event as chief guest. The occasion marked a significant milestone for the graduating students who received their degrees amidst an atmosphere of celebration and inspiration. Addressing the gathering, the minister commended the hard work, creativity and resilience of the graduating class. The ceremony was attended by faculty members, proud families and industry leaders, all gathered to celebrate the achievements of the students who've undergone rigorous training to master the art and science of fashion. And now let's get you some quick sporting updates as well. Well, the India versus Australia 5-match Border Gavaskar Trophy or series will be crucial for the hopes of both the sides, with Australia and India currently occupying the top 2 places on the World Test Championship standings. Although the participation of Indian captain Rohit Sharma still remains unsure, as the Indian cricketers left for Australia earlier this morning and Rohit Sharma did not travel with the team. Indian cricket team's head coach Gautam Gambhir has said ahead of the clash that, and I quote, "When you play for your country, every series is important. Irrespective of the past, for us, it is 2 good teams playing against each other, and we're absolutely keen to go out there, perform and win the series. If Rohit is not available for the first test match, there's KL Rahul there. We will take a call closer to the first match." Meanwhile, on Team India's performance in the New Zealand series, Gautam Gambhir said, and I quote again, "Obviously the learning is that we accept that we were outplayed. I'm not going to sit here and defend. I think we were outplayed in all 3 departments. They were more professional and we accept that. I think the criticism we are receiving, we take it with both hands and we keep moving forward and keep getting better every day." Now, the Indian team will be hoping to put its best foot forward in the upcoming series in Australia. Now, the EPL title race virtually comes down to 2 teams having played 11 matches so far. Our next report gets you more on this movement. We'll take a look.
The Premier League title race already looks like 2-horse contest just 11 games into the season. Liverpool had an ideal weekend, securing victory over Aston Villa, while Manchester City suffered a defeat to Brighton. A 1-1 draw between Arsenal and Chelsea added to Liverpool's advantage. Liverpool now leads City by 5 points and sits at least 9 points ahead of other contenders. Arsenal fans had hoped this might be their season, especially after pushing City close in last 2 campaigns. With City stumbling, losing 4 consecutive games across competitions, it seemed like a golden chance. Yet, under new manager Arne Slot, Liverpool has surpassed expectations, amassing 28 points out of 33 possible. Arsenal now trails the leaders by 9 points, the widest gap they have faced at this point since the final day of the 2021-22 season, where they finished 24 points behind City. Liverpool is only the 6th team in Premier League history to hold a 5-point lead after 11 games. Meanwhile, Pep Guardiola's City has hit an unusual low, losing 4 straight games for the first time in his career at Barcelona, Bayern Munich or City. Still, City's resilience is well known. They have only lost 4 league games after Christmas over the last 3 seasons and have overcome larger deficits than 5 points after 11 games. Narayan Singh reports for TD India.
And Grandmaster Arvind Chidambaram has won the Chennai Grandmasters 2024 chess event after beating Armenian-American Levon Aronian. The 25-year-old beat Aronian 2-0 in the tiebreaker to win the Masters section of the tournament. Earlier, Arvind Chidambaram ended India's top-ranked player Arjun Erigaisi's undefeated streak in the 6th round after having started off the competition with 5 draws. Erigaisi has finished 3rd in the competition. Chidambaram also beat Param Maghasudulu in the final round. Chief Minister of North Indian state of Uttarakhand, Pushkar Singh Dhami, took part in the Ganga Deep Mahotsav held at the famous Har Ki Pauri in Hardwar on Monday. The significant highlight of the evening was a captivating drone show which showcased the state's rich traditions, spirituality and natural beauty. The show featured imagery of sacred landmarks reflecting the region's deep-rooted Sanatan culture.
हिमालय से निकलती गंगा सिर्फ एक नदी नहीं है, बल्कि जीवन, आस्था, आध्यात्म और भारतीय संस्कृति का यह प्रतीक है कुंभ कलश। मनसा देवी और चंडी देवी मंदिर हरिद्वार की पवित्र पहाड़ियों पर स्थित।
त्रेता में तो हनुमान थे, द्वापर में भी हनुमान थे, लेकिन कलयुग का जो इंसान को इंसान नहीं समझेगा उसका मिट्टी में पहुंच गई खलबली। इससे बढ़िया मौका नहीं मिलेगा धन्यवाद करने का। दोनों हाथ उठा के मुट्ठी बंद करके जय जय जय
And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen right away. Download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.